How nice it is, how pleasant to be trudging along the rocky path. And as you go, notice that every few miles there are fewer rocks than there were before. You don't have to go around them so much or jump over them so much or bump into them so much, simply because the way in front of you gets a little bit clearer as you go along. We're going to remove this morning 1,000 rocks and boulders at least by getting very specific about a problem that we, by our own old nature, wants to keep concealed from ourselves. That problem is that of using labels, self-flatteries, opinions about personal goodness, using mere self-flattering words and labels and making them stand for personal virtue, which they do not. What I'm saying, in other words, is that people attribute strength, wisdom, maturity to themselves by claiming that they have them. But the very claiming of a virtue is exactly what prevents the individual from growing up into that virtue. Because there is an awful self-satisfaction as well as a ton of laziness in saying, I've already got the knowledge, I'm a settled self-commander, saying it and then trying to believe in what you said. No work to be done, no shocking and alarming self-facing of the fact that self-flattery is self-flattery, and that's all there is. Beneath the label of virtue is its exact opposite. No human being has ever been authentically saved, has ever entered the kingdom of heaven, without shattering the delusion that he is good when he's really bad. And to do that, you have to see the illusion as an illusion, and then, when you are nothing of yourself, God can give you his virtues. This is long, hard work. I've explained why before. It's long, hard work because when all you've got is pretense of wisdom or being spiritual when all you've got is pretense, you're not going to let that go for fear there's nothing else. I will tell you that there's something else, and I'll also tell you that you're never going to find it. You're not going to enter the kingdom of heaven until you know that right now, in spite of all your heavenly labels and pretenses, you do not have the pleasures of the kingdom. Rather, you have the torments of hell, because that is where you actually are. Oh, there's the problem. Think triple hard with me right now, because I know how you'll fight what I'm saying. Consider your life. Up till right now, one or the other. Now, come on, put a sharp dividing line. What wants to keep you chained doesn't want you to put a sharp dividing line, so you're going to defy it, rightly defy it, as for this spiritual instruction. A sharply dividing line. Which side have you been on, including the last week? Was your behavior heavenly or tormenting? Were you a pleasant person in facial expression and words to others? Were you, now look, I'm asking you a question. Were you pleasant all the time? Was your inner state so pleasant that you love your own company, because your own company is God's company now, not your own sick, neurotic nature anymore? Was your own company so enjoyable that you never had to go anywhere and impose yourself on anyone else because you were lonely and scared and needed to be distracted? It wasn't, was it? You need, oh, how desperately you need someone else. You won't free other people because you're depending on them to keep your delusion of heavenly pleasantness going. Why don't you dare to let them go? Please have the courage and the decency to let everyone go. You know what you'll find? If you free that man, if you free that woman, I'm talking about internal work. If you free them, you'll free yourself. If you chain them, you'll chain yourself. Back to the sharp dividing line. Now, come on. You've got to be honest. No self-deceit. I try to put it as simply as I can. Are you a nice person, or are you a troubled person? And that troubled spirit that you have has to express its own nature in quarrelsomeness, in trying to pull and keep other people on your side. One or the other. And I'm going to give you this moment of final decision. Is your life pleasant or unpleasant? If it's unpleasant, I'm going to tell you how to cross over the line. But all throughout this explanation, you can't know more than what you're hearing. You have to yield to what you're hearing so that it can give its health to you. And I tell you very, very bluntly that you don't know how fiercely your usual nature is going to battle and be hostile against what you're going to hear. Because its purpose is to keep you unfree. Misery indeed loves company, which is why bad people always have to convert others to their badness. They're afraid they're going to run out of friends. You know, a true spirit would understand what I just said, and he will let everyone go. He will run out of friends. That doesn't mean you don't talk to your neighbors anymore. You know that. I'm talking about inner work. You might have 100 friends on the social level, but not a single one spiritually inside. I dare you to be honest enough and decent enough and spiritual enough to let every single person in this world go. No more imposing on them under the guise of helping them, of being their friend, and of a partnership in going through life together. Forget all the labels you have placed on any relationship and start all over. The pattern of everyone, therefore, is an alternation between sad and mad. Never really glad. You can't be glad. You can't really be glad till you're spiritual. So all you've got left in the poetry contest here, all you've got is sad or mad. Now, I would like a show of inner hands, not with your physical hands. Do you, sir, Mrs., Ms.? You got to include everyone. Do you really, come on, alternate between sad and mad? The answer is yes. That means that you're not going to miss a word of what is said here this morning. You're going to cling to every little syllable because you don't want to be sad or mad anymore. You know that it's destructive. And at the end of this talk, among other values, you will know at a glance something that you don't know now after gazing dully at it for 50 hours. You will know the difference between the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of hell within yourself. And I now give you an exercise to forward that lesson. Watchfulness, honesty. Did that word, did that facial expression, did that action come from the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of hell? It has to come from one or the other. There's no third choice. I tell you, everything can be divided into those. Even what we call trivial thoughts, mental movies, they are from the kingdom of hell. As much pleasure as they seem to give you, because they are distracting you from the spiritual mind, which could give you authentic pleasure. So, all day, ask yourself, and listen to me, this is very important. Not only judge it in yourself, but in others, not in self-righteous superiority to anyone else, but simply as a passive witness of the behavior of friends and family and strangers in the supermarket, shopping center, including the parking lot. I saw that man and heard him make a sarcastic remark to his girlfriend. That's the kingdom of hell. On and on. And the reason I tell you this is because you, unknown to yourself, don't want that clear-cut distinction made. You want to set up your own standards. You, out of your old egotistical mind, you insist on being the judge as to what is heaven and what is hell. And any sick-minded human being who insists on being his own judge, guess how he's going to judge things. I am the kingdom of heaven and of rightness, and anyone who doesn't recognize that and bow down and worship me is from the kingdom of hell. The sickness of a man, woman who has gone so far that they are a DBR. And those of you who don't know what a DBR is, it's damaged beyond repair. A man who can no longer hear. Or, if he hears truth, he uses it to feel his hell, which he'll call the kingdom of heaven. For example, his hostility. And if it doesn't walk out physically during a truth talk, he'll walk out mentally and try to drag others out with him. Conclusion of this point. It is so essential for you to not get the two kingdoms mixed up. Start with simple things. How many know what I'm talking about when I say the thrill of an ego victory? You've got something over someone else. You was able to get away with bad treatment of them, and they weren't able to get back at you for some reason, so you feel good about it. See, I'm right and he's wrong. All ego victories, all snarling, all sneering, all sarcasm are a part of the kingdom of destruction. All right? Spotlight under that. I don't want any of you to escape this morning. I want you to face what must be faced so that you're shocked, but after the shock, the understanding of the point. Egotism, which never calls itself egotism, it's the other person who is egotistical, never the egotist. Egotism will express itself in low, unpleasant, evil expressions. Look at that man's face. Listen to what he says. Sense his inner level and his attitudes. And don't say anything to him, please. He wants you to, because he wants to argue and win an ego victory. Very quietly within yourself, secret counsel within yourself, say, that has to be from the kingdom of hell. because there is no snarling, no quarreling, no self-justification. There's no attacking of other human beings in the kingdom of heaven. Please do this work, and I'll tell you what your reward will be. Among others, in your personal life, you will see the rocks grow lesser and lesser, and the smooth places grow more and more. And not only that, but one of the smooth places will be a world that now you don't know exists because you've been brainwashed, hoodwinked, into believing that your only present world is the only world there is. I came here this morning to tell you that there's another way, another world to inhabit than the one that you're in right now. You must experience that for yourself. I can tell you about it, but I can't lead you to it. You have to determine to allow God to lead you to it. But the point is, evil forces want you to live in sick satisfaction with what you now have and are. God wants you to do better and to have better. Now, one more point, then I'm going to tell you an interesting story. Even though you do not really have contact with God, and I'm telling you that you don't, you have words and you have imaginations about it. Even though you do not presently know who God is, I want you to cry out. Now, not in front of anyone else. This is a part of your secret counsel. Don't tell anyone. Do it all by yourself. I want you to get off all by yourself, and you can do it in the middle of the supermarket if you want. But I want you to make a simple request, just as simple as this. God, help me. That's all. That's all you need to do. And if your heart is right, you will get an answer to that. Please don't carry a clock or a calendar into your room of prayer. Leave them outside, and don't give God a time limit for answering your prayer. Because if you do, you'll have received evil counsel from yourself, and when after a day, after a year, even if you put a time limit on God, answer my prayer, if you put a time limit, after 20 years, you're going to say, I gave you 20 years. God, yes, you'll say this, not know you're saying that. God, I gave you 20 years. And then satanic forces will start to make you bitter. The point is now, you are absolutely not to trust any human being on this earth. No one. But you're to trust God. And when that has been accomplished, you will know something that you don't know now, that is keeping you in terrible confusion, some of you. What you will know is whether that human being is telling you truthful things or devilish things. You will know. And you will know how you know whether that man is telling you the truth or not. Because you didn't go through man to find out. You went through God, and God told you that that person is true and that person is false. And one day, the whole picture will come together. For example, I told you, if you ever hear a man making sneering, sarcastic remarks, that man is from Satan, not from God. And I told you that, but you didn't see it. Now you see it. Well, of course. Could God have a hateful spirit? Of course not. The line is drawn, and for a long, long time you didn't know which side that council that man was on. Now you know, because you decided to abandon every human being and go to God first, last and always, and allow Him to instruct you who you should listen to and who you should ignore. And that's the only way to do it. And don't you listen to any human being who tells you that he knows and can teach you. Now, look, I'm telling you to suspend judgment. Otherwise, you'll decide to accept or reject that man according to your own insecurities. You want to find some man who knows, because then he can tell you and you will feel safe. This is one of the slickest tricks of the kingdom of hell, to get you to depending on that person or that group, working on your weakness and insecurity. And I just told you what to do. And I will now tell you something straight from the kingdom of heaven. And then I'm going on to a little story. I will tell you that you will then know of yourself that this room that you're in right now is pure, healthy, spiritual, and inspired by the kingdom of heaven. And you will know it because heaven itself revealed it to you. Once upon a time, there were some sad and mad men and women. And these sad and mad people were that way because none of them in this community knew who they were. Oh, the man was a car mechanic, and anyone asked, what's your way of earning a living? He said, I'm a car mechanic. You knew that? Someone asked a woman, what do you do to earn your living? She said, I'm a school teacher. She knew she was a school teacher. And then they knew they were male and female. They knew they were over 40, under 40. They knew they were an American or an Englishman or a German. They knew who they were, things like that. But that was no problem. What they didn't know was who they were internally, without names, without labels like mechanic or school teacher. They had no natural, spiritual identity, and it bothered them. They wanted to know who they were besides a mechanic and a school teacher. And they felt, and rightly so, by the way, they felt that if they could find their true nature, true identity, their pains would go away, and they would no longer alternate between mad and sad. They knew that, sensed it, rather than conscious knowing. That comes later. They felt it, and they were right. When you do know who you really are, you're no longer mad and bad. And by the way, in observing other people, if they're always mad, hostile, surly, that's from the kingdom of hell. Put it over on the hell side, not heaven. Be honest about it. You've got to tell the truth about what you see. Well, there was one man in this village who was so bothered and just didn't know what to do that he decided to give himself his own solution. His own solution was to take little pieces of paper, 8 by 8 inches, scraps of paper, took a dozen of them. This is what I'm telling you. You can call it science fiction, you can call it a myth, you can call it a fable, but it's a type of story that will get right to the point in explaining things to you. Call it a fantasy. And he got about, let's say about 20 of these blank pieces of paper. And he gave himself an identity, a personality. He told himself exactly who he was. And he wrote one virtue per slip of paper. On one he wrote, I am a good man. Another, I'm a wise man. I'm a natural-born leader of people. Well-educated. And of course, he had to put down, I'm always patient. I never snap at other people. Always calm. And one of the most valuable to him was the label, I always know what I'm doing. He had to crowd that one in. Such a long one. I always know what I'm doing. Other people don't, but I do. In other words, a self-commander. So, he took pins and, careful not to poke himself, he put these labels all over him. Now you understand, I'm sure, that that's ridiculous. The label doesn't change anything. Calling yourself good doesn't make you good. Calling yourself wiser than everyone else on earth doesn't make you wiser. As a matter of fact, you know that it really keeps you stupid. Only a stupid man has to call himself wise. If he'd remained stupid, he would understand the state. But here's the point right for now. What could be more ridiculous than doing that? But listen to this. I'm giving you some real life things here. He was the only one who didn't know it was ridiculous. He thought it was practical, sensible to give himself labels. Now I know who I am. And if I forget, all I have to do is look. He even had a mirror in his pocket so he could put it up like this and read those on his back. He always had an identity. Well, guess what happened? What happened was, one day he was strolling down the street. Oh, by the way, as he was strolling down the street, guess what he was doing? He was repressing his sadness and madness, shoving it underneath. Because he proclaimed to the world, I am a peaceful, kindly, good man. Oh, I've got to live up to the image. Now he's in big trouble, isn't he? I've said this about myself, and I feel myself rageful. Wow. If anyone sees me getting mad, they'll know I'm a hypocrite. I don't want them to think I'm a hypocrite. I want them to believe in my labels. And incidentally, he walked down so many streets with his labels on. A horrible fate befell him. He began to believe in them. After a while, he didn't even notice the pieces of paper anymore because they'd become internal with him. He didn't know what a hell he had set up for himself when he first started this dishonesty of his own plan for salvation. But he didn't even notice the labels anymore because they were internal. And now he believed in them fully, as ridiculous as it was, to call himself calm when he was boiling. I'm calm, I'm calm, I'm calm. All the time he's insisting he's calm, he's boiling, and he didn't see it. He didn't see the contradiction. Well, anyway, one day he was walking down the street, outwardly happy, inwardly sick. See, everyone in the kingdom of hell is sick. Guess who he met? Just exactly what he'd been wandering around hoping to meet. He met a pretty young thing walking down the street, and guess what she had all over her? 8x8 pieces of paper in which she described herself. And he looked him over. Hey, this gal says she's attractive, and she never gets mad. Always calmly understanding and pleasant. Hey, and what's that one on her left shoulder? I am a terrific cook. That got him. He fell hard for that one. That one about being loving and affectionate was okay too. You know what happened, don't you? They got married. And you know what happened next, don't you? But we're going to leave them in their little honeymoon cottage for a little bit. Another man was walking down the street. This is in the habit of putting phony labels on one's self-personality and then thinking that they're real. It's spread all around town. A lot of other people started doing it. If they can do it, why can't I? So a second man was walking down the street, and this time his particular interest was money, owning big homes and his own airplane, and being written up in the paper as a business typhoon. He was walking down the street, and he met another man who had the same kind of labels. I'm a genius at money making. They met, started talking. They formed a business partnership. Two great geniuses like us. Alone we'll make $1 billion, together we'll make 50 trillion. So they formed a partnership, and they went off down to the offices in the big building, and we'll leave them there for a while. Third man came down, he met someone else, formed a friendship. Are you seeing what's happening? When a person believes in his own imaginary virtues, strengths, he must then express those as dishonest, to put it mildly, as they are. But other people fall for them because they're doing the same thing. Now, you listen to this simple rule. Maybe you haven't heard it for a few months. Only self-deception can run into deception by someone else. You can't fool an honest man. Now, there's tremendous truth beyond it. You can't fool an honest man. You can only fool another charlatan. Because having seen through your own charlatanism, you now see it in the other man. You can't fool him. You know, for example, that You have to earn what you get, whether it's your bread or even the kingdom of heaven. You have to work for it. Different kind of work. All right. Now look what we have over a period of time. Thousands of sad and mad people, all of them wandering around, believing in their own lies and believing in the lies of other people that they met. Now came the tears and the heartache and the bitterness and the hardness of broken relationships, the married couple and the friends and the business partners. And isn't it strange? Let me get this in right now. Isn't it fantastic? And we'll include ourselves in this. How utterly unbelievable that no one learns. Meet, fight, part company. Meet, someone else, fight, part company. The pattern never changes. Nobody ever learns because they don't want to learn. They don't want to believe in a God outside their labels. They want to believe in the little slips of paper which have now become their description of themselves, which means they burn all day long, calling that burning their heaven. That is absolutely fatal. One reason this class exists is to catch men and women before they get to the point where they don't want to see the reality of their own self-labeling. Well, one day a heavenly messenger came in the form of a wise man who looked like anyone else, had a physical body, and he sent a message throughout the whole village. He said, come to the public square tomorrow and I'm going to explain the whole problem to you and also the solution. Well, out of curiosity more than anything else, the thousands of people came to the big public square and the wise man stood up on a platform and he went over everything that you have heard in this talk, plus a lot more. And he concluded, as I have to conclude this talk, that you must honestly admit that you have the labels, and I want you all right now is the day of salvation, I want you to start unpinning them and drop them to the ground. And that won't be called littering. I have a trash man ready to come along and pick them up afterward. So you may freely drop them to the ground. Get rid of your labels. Out of those thousands of people, one man and one woman obeyed. All the others wandered on back to continue with their sick, miserable, self-deceptive life. That one man and that woman, oh, it was awful, it was painful, I'm telling you. It will put you through a new hell, go through the new hell, and you'll abolish hell altogether. Oh, to take the pin out and drop it. I don't know who I am, and when they're all gone, you will know who you are. Good morning.